Hello and a very warm welcome. This is New Dawn Nigeria on Viewer Television, your weekend magazine program. And as always, I am Chinonso Checkworth.
And I'm Philip Sullivan, of course, here at your service. This episode promises to be exciting because we have exciting editions all packed up, all ready for you. So all you have to do is sit back, relax, and enjoy every bit of it. As usual, we bring to you update from the newspaper headlines. That's from the week all through, and of course, we bring in guests to analyze one or two topics that has been trending in Nigeria. And this one promised to be exciting, so you have to be relax and enjoy every bit of it. Now, New Dawn will be back after this break.
In this 21st century, where all the information we need is now in the palm of our hands. News from around the world, entertainment, celebrity gossip, sports, and much more. The only thing that you need is the right source. Viewer TV is now on the go. Simply check us out on our social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter for all the information you need.
It's good to know that you are still with us on the New Dawn, your exciting breakfast show magazine program that comes your way every Saturday, Sundays here on a viewer television. As I promised earlier, we're looking at a few headlines from two select national dailies that we have in Nigeria. Give you the headlines so that at least you understand what has happened all through the week up to this moment. So now, as usual, from national dailies, we'll start with Monday being uh,
13th.
the 13th day of November 2023. And in no particular order, as usual, start with the Daily Trust. And the Daily Trust, the top story for Monday says Uzodinma Ododo win as Dewey maintains lead. Talking about the off-cycle election. And the sub headline there says Nigerian lawmakers must ridiculed, says Senate President Akpabio. And also, I will ensure National Assembly creates constitutional role for traditional rulers, and that is coming from Tinubu. They also have grumbling over $54 million domestic airlines trapped funds. You can find more of those stories from the daily, I would say, post for Monday. And moving forward, we'll be having leadership. And the top stories there say still on the off-cycle election outcome. We have Ododo wins Kogi, Hope returns in Imo. And that's for leadership for Monday. And we have NNPC restores oil production of 275,000 barrels per day at Total Energies. That is for the leadership. And moving forward, we have the Vanguard, which on the top story is still on the off-cycle elections, saying Uzodima Ododo winning Imo could keep Elsa ready for that day. And we also have in insecurity now, business, that's according to Matawali. The annual confab, Muka or Shoba or Balagbena lead 300 editors to OU. Edo to become first world economy. And that is from Obasiki there. And to this day, still for Monday, we have huge recurrent expenditure affecting states' capacity to development. Also, the off-cycle update was Odema Odudu win Imo Kogi Dairy leads in Bielsa's. Okay. The Guardian newspaper is next, still for the 13th day of November, and still have the off-cycle election saying Uzodima re-elected, Ododo wins Kogi as Dairy leads in Bielsa's state. We have pictures of the outcome of the Imo, Bielsa, and Kogi state there. And reps launched NAS Eyes for effective oversight on MDX. And we have Imo Guba poll, how not to conduct a credible election. You can find more of those stories from the Guardian newspaper. And for the last paper, though, we have it for Monday. We have the Daily Sun, which says APC wins Imo Kogi, Diri Silva, no fate. That's for Monday. Remember, drop by any vendor close you get a copy, and of course, find out more about those stories, or rather, it is on their online platforms. It's just one click away, and you can get more of the stories there. Maybe you can help us with the one for Tuesday.
All right, so Tuesday the 14th, we begin with the Vanguard newspaper, and the headline story there is a shock as Saudi Arabia cancels visa on arrival for 264 Nigerians. That's the Vanguard newspaper. And it says here that passengers airborne back to Nigeria. And it's Aeropolitics, the aviation security consultant, says. And other story there, following the off-cycle elections, Bayelsa Imo Kogi governorship polls say triumphant is Diri Ododo Uzodima unveil agenda. That's for Vanguard newspaper. And let's take some other stories. Securities dealers blames speculators for Naira's woes. That's for Vanguard newspaper for the 14th. And let's moving on to the next paper. This is Leadership. Say, despite court order, Labour begins indefinite strike. This is news for, and it says there, the man's removal of Imo police commissioner and arrest of suspects. It said, you must respect subsisting court order. Attorney General tells union leaders. And also following the elections, Ododo Uzodima unveil blueprint as Diri gets second term in the Bayelsa polls. That's for Leadership newspaper. Let's move on to the next. We have The Guardian. The Guardian on a different story say doctors, patients bemoan diabetes epidemic, 200% spike on treatment. So you can get more information of that. That's something on the Guardian newspaper. It says Knox and praise for INEC as Diri coast to victory in Bayelsa states. That's updates from the off-cycle elections the past weekend. Say human trafficking, Benue ranked highest as 1.6 million Nigerians get trapped in modern slavery. You can find that news on the Guardian newspaper for the 14th of November. And moving on to Nigerian Tribune. Say ports, railway orders to shut down as NLC TUC begin strike. Say labor unions must respect subsisting court order. Can get more of that story on the Nigerian Tribune. Let's take another story there. Say a Frexim Bank avails UBA $150 million trade finance facility to cushion effect of Ukraine war on its customers. That's some interesting news there, and you can find it on the Nigerian Tribune. PDP's Dewey wins Bayelsa, Google polls defeats ABC's Silver, and others. Moving on to this day for the same 410, still following the election story, jubilation as Dewey wins Bayelsa poll says he'll be governor for all. And Ribadu says Buhari's administration bankrupted Nigeria. That's been some trending story over the past week. You can get details of that in this day newspaper for the 14th of November. It says country paying back what was taken and insists that security situation has improved as 600 kidnapped victims in captivity for 2 years rescued quietly. Can catch up on those stories on the This Day newspaper for November the 14th. Now, moving on to Daily Sun, it says Labour ignores court order and declares indefinite strike. Says federal government has refused to yield to Congress's demands. You must obey court order, AGF tells the union. Some other story, Kanu denied access to visitors. IPOB alleges. And still on the Daily Sun, you can see that Tinubu and each government spent over 150 billion naira and 14 billion naira to win elections. This is coming from APC's chieftain. It claims ruling party progressively losing democratic credentials. So you can find those stories and more on the Daily Sun for the 14th. And let's take the Punch. Still on the union strike, federal government threatens labor with contempt charge. NLC remain adamant, says nationwide strike is indefinite. The NLC boasts, the federal government fumes, says labor disobeys court order. And out on the polls, Tinubu Lords INEC, PDP faults Kogi and Imo results. And 20 die as Taraba boat on fishing expedition capsizes. Lagos drivers protest LASMA extortion. Commuters remain stranded. That is from the Punch newspaper for the 14th of November. And that's all we'll be taking for this day.
All right, and for Wednesday being the 15th, we'll be starting with Nigerian Tribune, which the top story there has to do with the labor strike. The labor strike kicks off, where ports, schools, banks, NAS complex, others suffer, and also train operations also affected. Serious compliance in Edo, Bauchi, Oshun, Kogi, Imo, and others. That is for the Nigerian Tribune. We inherited serious liability assets. That's according to the president there, Tinubu. And moving forward, the Guardian newspaper. Still for Wednesday, November 15th, 2023, 1 year after takeover of discourse, darkness, liquidity, crisis persist. That is from the Guardian. And again, SEC moves to reduce 90 billion unclaimed dividends. That's from the business angle of the Guardian newspaper. And compliance defiance as NLC, TUC indefinite strike kicks off. The Atiku Chicks coalition of opposition parties caution against slide to one party dictatorship. Well, I gotta say this. I feel this strike wasn't. They just picked the wrong reason to go on strike. Why I said wrong reason is because there are other things that have been happening that should warrant strike, not because you've had issues with. I think the best case for him to handle was maybe take the matters to court.
To court,
So,
exactly.
rather than crippling the
The
nation.
nation.
There
Yeah.
are situations that needed a strike that I would say they didn't come up with strike. They just let it slide, and all of a sudden, just because he had his own personal issue, all of a sudden he decided to put this indefinite strike. That was why I reasoned it was uncalled for.
Yeah, it was uncalled for. At least they may say they got some little bit of impact. It was actually, you could have gotten the same impact of somebody being suspended from work or something in the Imo state. You could have gotten the same impact if you had gone to court, like you say. Because if you ask me my honest opinion, what the strikes are doing, the strike, the call off we're negotiating, The only impact I see is that it is making the news, and that's all.
It was just based on personal
We're just
reasons.
making the
Actually,
news.
there are different cases happening every day that needs protest. That seriously.
So moving on to Thursday, news making the headlines. Thursday, the 16th of November, we start with the Leadership newspaper. And the major news there says relief as Labour leaders suspend indefinite strike. That's for the Leadership newspaper. And the top story there says you have entrenched democracy in Nigeria, Tinubu tells editors. And we take that same lead story again, the 30,000 minimum wage no longer acceptable, says Abdul Salami. You can find that and other stories from the Leadership newspaper. And moving on to this day newspaper for Thursday. And the major headline says, after meeting, federal government, NLC, TUC suspend nationwide strike. Said direct workers across Nigeria to return to duty post today. And NSA says Ajaro's attackers already in custody. So that's some positive news there. And in other news, stakeholders re-echo call for sale of NNPC's oil gas assets to fund big upstream projects. You can find that and other stories from the This Day newspaper for Thursday, the 16th of November. And moving on to Daily Sun newspaper, still for that day, say Labour reaches truce with federal government and suspends strike. NLC appreciates members for compliance. And Nigeria sliding into totalitarianism, says PDP, as party senators settle for North Central for minority leaders. That's from the Daily Sun newspaper for Thursday. And we move on next to Daily Thrust. Daily Trust says 2 children killed as fire razes 1,113 houses of Borno IDP camp. That's some tragic story there. And after grounding FCT states for 2 days, Labour finally suspends strike. That's still Daily Trust. And some international news say Israel wants to turn Gaza unlivable city, says Palestinian envoy. And some economic matters still on the Daily Trust says inflation hits 27.3% as cost of food and others rise. That's the Daily Trust newspaper stories making the headline for Thursday, 16th of November. Now let's move to The Guardian. The Guardian says currency depreciation, high energy cost worsen inflation outlook. Tackling crashes by trucks, articulated vehicles in Lagos, Ogun. This is news analysis. You can find that on page 4 of the Guardian newspaper. And Saudi cities cite wrong visas and faulty applications for the deportation of 177 Nigerians. And NNPCL flags currency crisis as barrier to investment. And that's for the Guardian newspaper, the stories making the headlines. And we move up next to the Punch. The Punch for Thursday the 16th, it says Lagos, Kogi, Rivers lead as inflation hits 27.33%. 177 deported Nigerians violated Saudi Arabia's visa rules, says the embassy. That's the reason for the deportation. And the federal government reduces charges against the Emefiele and strike stalls arraignment. There's a follow-up story to that. But the major story on the Punch headline says Labour suspends strike, OPS stakeholders tackle NLC and TUC. The strike over Ajero, assault abuse of power, says LCCI maritime sector loses 20 billion naira to the strike. And Labour threatens to resume strike, insists on demand, says suspension is temporary. And the bottom news from the Punch newspaper says LP welcomes Atiku's merger proposal. NNPP gives condition. Navy arrest 4 stowaways aboard Dubai vessel. Politics getting really interesting in Nigeria, and LASG dislodges and arrests street traders in Oshodi and others. You can find the stories and more on the Punch newspaper for Thursday, the 16th of September. Let's take a final paper, the New Telegraph. The New Telegraph. Every newspaper has taken this story, saying Labour suspends nationwide strike after meeting with the federal government. It says we've arrested a juror's attacker, says federal government. Seems the strike was beneficial. And the top story there says revenue squeeze, federal government loses 1.3 trillion to duty waivers in 2023. Alone, it says current tough times, Nigerian sacrifice for better future, says Tinubu. And Senate to federal government upgrade Eastern Rail line from narrow to standard gauge. It seeks to establish aviation college in Ogun Federal Data Bank. Say dust haze to affect visibility in 24 hours. NIMET warns, says it cautions people with respiratory health challenges. Nigeria's inflation rises to 27.3% amid rising food prices. And global efforts to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, failing new report warns. That's some weather update there. And that's the New Telegraph for Thursday. And now let's move on to news making the headlines for Friday, November the 17th. We begin with the Daily Trust, and following some election trials, it says appeal court sacks Zamfara governor and orders rerun in 3 local governments. Say Kano, Bauchi governors, they know their fates today, that's Friday, and panic. Foodstuffs buying in Kano over fear of violence. This is waiting for the judgment announcement. And police warn against wild jubilation in Bauchi state. And some top stories there, 613 families of deceased police officers get 2.2 billion naira. Bayelsa, Imo, Kogi polls. Vote buying, intimidation, disturbing, says peace committee. Bandits kill mother, newborn orders in Sokoto. It's tragic story there, and that's all for the Daily Trust for Friday the 17th. And we move on to the Nigerian Tribune. The Nigerian Tribune says anxiety in Kano, Plateau, as court orders rerun in Zamfara in 3 local governments affected. It says why we are against borrowing to finance 2024 budgets. That's coming from the finance minister, and you can get that story from the Nigerian Tribune, page 5. And it says Southeast, North Central get 3 new Supreme Court justices each, as FGSC nominates ex-CGN son and 21 orders for elevation. That's some judiciary story there. You can find that and more on the Nigerian Tribune. And more story there on insecurity matters. We inherited tough period, says Ribadu as editors at editors conference. That's some story you need to read. All right, let's move on to the Daily Sun for Friday. The federal government making progress in the fight against insecurity, says Ribadu. It says Tinubu inherited tough period. The cries proliferation of small arms, light weapons. So the ex-CBN governor Emefiele for arraignment amid EFCC plans for re-arrest. Says Obi picks holes in federal government's bankruptcy claim. He says government spending behavior contradicts claim. Yep. And president committed to minimizing pains of reforms. Wale Edun. This is on the bankruptcy claim of the federal government. You can find that and more stories from the Daily Sun for November the 17th. And now let's move on to the Guardian newspaper. The top story there says how sachet alcoholic drinks breed alcoholism and thwart national development. Yes, that's when I saw that alcohol is being sold over the counter in stores. That's something we need to be concerned about. So service shut down imminent as USSD debt hit 20 billion naira. This is still on the Guardian newspaper. It says, Appeal Court sacks Zamfara governor and orders rerun in 3 local governments. You can get that news and more information for the Guardian newspaper for November the 17th. And let's move on to the Vanguard. The Vanguard newspaper and the major stories there says, why kidnapping has replaced armed robbery, says NSA. That's interesting to know that kidnapping has replaced armed robbery in Nigeria. And say FJSC okays 22 justices for elevation to Supreme Court. An appeal court declares them for a governorship election inconclusive. Some economic story there said we can't continue borrowing to fund Nigeria's budget, says Wale Edun. That's interesting. We should listen to our minister. You can get those stories and more from the Vanguard newspaper for Friday, November the 17th. And we close our newspaper headlines for today with the Punch newspaper. And the major headline there says, be patient. Inherited crisis won't disappear overnight. This is Ribadu, the NSA. And he says he appeals to Nigerians and says Tinubu inherited poor economy and insecurity. An exposed deficit inherited from Buhari. Be transparent or be challenges the federal government. And the window stories on the Punch. Some Forex news. Federal government blames low export earnings and plans diversification. Banks USSD debt to telcos hits 20 billion naira. Senate summons service chiefs and demands security rejig. Let's take that last thing, Guinea-Bissau at 50. That's some independent story. Tinubu pledges support for West Africa's democracy. Yeah, an 80-year-old woman dies in Lagos building collapse. That's some tragic stories there, and our hearts go out to the family of the deceased. And that's all for our newspaper headlines for New Dawn this morning. And now on our State of the Nation segment, we'll be having an interview with Honorable Ruby. She's here to give us her reviews on the past by-elections and how women can get more involved in the polity of our nation. Do stay tuned. There's more to come your way on New Dawn Nigeria. Many thanks for staying with us. You're still watching New Dawn Nigeria on Viewer Television. And now we saw a decline in the representation of women in the past general elections in February. And it has drawn us to ask a lot of questions. Why? Why don't we have more women make it up to the ballot? And what are the reasons? What are the challenges that women face while trying to make it into political positions? We're being joined right now live in the studio by Honorable Ruby Chineye. She's an aspirant, presidential aspirant under the Young Progressives YPP. That is YPP. Thank you for coming on this morning. Thank you for making the time. All right. So first up, let's just start by asking, you're an aspirant. You didn't make it to the candidacy. How was that journey getting up to that point?
Okay, well, I would say it's very interesting. So many lessons to learn. driving or diving among the sharks, you know, politics. Usually I tell people I won't say I'm really new in politics, even though in quote I'm new. However, I grew into a family of politicians. So over time, I had learnt a lot of practices, a lot of, style, antics and all, and I just thought that my driving point was actually out of pain. I just realized that Nigeria is so blessed. Go to every state. There is no state that is famished of any natural resources. So much in every state of Nigeria, and all Nigeria needs is coordination. And I just thought that can't we have a man with sense to just be there to coordinate the affairs of Nigeria? So that drove me into a lot of thinking. And I said, all right, let's see what we can do. Even though prior to that time there'd been that fear, usually they will sell you all kinds of fear. You're a woman, oh, don't even try it, don't there, you just waste your money. I said, let's waste it, let's go there. And at the point I joined, the race, I actually believed that Nigeria had come to that point where it should be beyond just politics. They should be able to see that, look, there is a need here. Because prior to that time, Nigeria was at the brink of breaking down. We were so divided. We've never been so divided in history. And I just thought that, there's this thing about a woman of unifying a family.
Yeah.
No matter how sons go against themselves, daughters against themselves, the father against children, a woman has a way of bringing them. Why? Because a woman naturally is able to study every temperament around her, whether educated or not. So, of course, let me not delve away from your question too much. I learned a whole lot of lessons. Actually, they were very painful. Very, very painful. To realize that there are some men who still think that a woman can't sit over them. It was a shocker to me, rude one, because I was wondering, okay, is it now about the woman thing? That mentality where a man just believes that a woman should be in the kitchen. There are women with PhD with all manner of, gifts, talents, and that can help society. But they are just these men that in their mentality, they just can't accept the fact that a woman should be out. But of course, going against all odds, I was lucky, to join a party, this young progressive party. And of course, I think their concept was a bit different from every other party I knew. And we had more young people there. So people you could at least try to sell your perspective to. And unfortunately, so many things played out. The hardship in society had it played out because by the time you reason out how you want to go and feed your family after this election, and here you are, maybe a party chairman, secretary, no other means of livelihood, even the one that you have. How many months can it feed your family in the year? So of course, people would naturally plunge for, like greener pastures, promises, and all that. I told them, I said, I'm not going to bribe a soul. If I'm going to give anything, let me win, let me have the ticket. I would dish out as much as I can. However, I'm not going to bribe it. So why? Because I always make this illustration, even after the primaries. I said, if you see someone who plunges into a well, and then you are trying to save him, he's dying, he's drowning, and then I come to you, give me your hand, I pass a stick to you. And then the next thing you're saying, I should give you money first. It's absurd, it's crazy. I've never seen someone so mad to do that. So it was really painful to see these things play out. And I will always tell everybody in the political realm, outside politics, the problem we have in Nigerian politics, before getting to INEC and all of those parts, is the party delegates. Because if the party delegates delivers a wrong candidate, everything will be wrong. So it's like, are you telling me Nigeria with men we have, both inside and outside the country? There's nothing wrong in bringing somebody from outside the country who has sense and is a Nigerian, is born here, even if not born here, in Nigerian blood, and then he has the solution to things. Offer him the space. What we need is progress. The truth is, there are certain mentality that I found in the course of the election, because you're asking me my experience. certain mentality that if it does not drop, I'm telling you, my dear, in the next 20 years, we'll be
We'll still
discussing
be here.
this. In the next 50 years, it's not cursing, it's just practical.
So you said something about women having the ability to nurture and think naturally. Women we're nurturers, and we have come to the point where we believe that if we can do this small scale at home, we can bring this to the government. But we have seen that it is a very patriarchal society.
Yeah,
Like
it
you're saying,
is.
the men have not accepted. But we've seen in some places where women have actually made it, right? So what do you think is playing out in these places where some women are making it, some are not? Because you said you are not going to you had made up your mind you weren't going to bribe anybody. So is it that the women who have made it, they probably had to succumb to some ideologies that were not theirs, or how did they make it there and some are not?
It's both ways. I think some of the women who actually probably made it through to some electoral positions are probably maybe paid their prices in such party, so it's more or less like, let us just settle her, make she rest, such a thing. Because you know, look at a woman like Ireti. The truth is, we got to a point where every woman, we told, at the point it was time to vote, and we told ourselves that, look, we are in no party. We want that lady in. Going through our antecedents and, roles she had played in different political parties, like big roles. And this is a woman who has something upstairs. What's stopping you? From so we have to, like, fellow women started conversing for her, irrespective of my party. I'm bold to say that, even to the hearing of my party. Because you see, at the point we had in the last election, it would have been beyond party.
Yes.
It would have been beyond party. It would have been with who can deliver what at what point and at what stage. But unfortunately, it didn't play out. So for those women, some of them, let me just say, privileged, to be helped by certain men in their circle, because there's a he for she. We have a lot of he for she's who fight battle on behalf of certain women. God bless them wherever they are. And we hope that there'll be more men like that to aid women. Because the truth is, the terrain is, they make it look like it's a lion's den. And that is a man's place to be. No, it's not a man's place. The truth is, if I can coordinate my home, or I run a ministry or an organization that is in at least 26 states of Nigeria, at least 8 countries, including America, the UK, and Canada, and then from one spot, I'm able to fix things and get things done. Then what are you talking about? 36 states. They all are endowed. You don't need your money to add to Nigeria. You just need to use what is on ground. The human resources is there. The natural endowments are there. There is no state in Nigeria. So, well, let me just say those women, I'm really happy for them, because we belong to certain women platforms. We were celebrating at any point we saw that one woman emerged as a House of Rep member or a senator or something, because we knew that the truth is there has to be balance in life. That is where these men miss it. Why are you not alone in your home as a man? Why are you not delivering your children by yourself? Why do you need a woman? So that concept has to be dropped as soon as possible. Until that happens.
Talking about balance now, do you think that this is something that law can help? Because we've seen, let's take inferences from societies like other countries, even in Africa, like Somalia. We know that female lawmakers they were in the country as at last week. They met with some of our lawmakers trying to exchange ideas. We hope that the men take this in. And we can see somebody like Ramaphosa right now who has 50 women. Do you think we need laws right now?
We already have
to enact that.
We
so why are we not following?
We already have these laws. We already have these laws. I think just a few months ago, either towards the ending of last year, stroke this year, there was a Supreme Court, a judgment that was given. I think about as per women participation in government. But the thing is, we still have leaders who are immune to law, if you ask me. And then they don't give in to anything the law says. So they just mess it up. It doesn't matter whether 30%, 40%, we'll put just one woman. We've tried for you. You know? So until we get to that point where that rule of law really takes place. Because if, for instance, as a party chairman, you are given the opportunity to say, okay, we have 60-40. So it's natural that normally if you're taking 6 men, then you take 4 women. Naturally. But it doesn't hold sway, right? So that is why until we also have a government that can still stand and respect the rule of law, there will still be issues.
You think? Okay. Go on.
Let's let me not sound like an outsider in the topic of women and all that.
Yeah, you sure you're not?
Let's look at the off-cycle election that just picked. Some it was fair, to some it wasn't. Now, for you being in politics, or reaching up to that level where you were aiming for the presidency, what's your thought on the off-cycle election in reference to the election?
Sometimes I really don't want to talk about it because it gets me sick. Everything is wrong.
What aspect?
From the INEC part, there was no fairness. I'm sorry, there wasn't. There wasn't. And you see, there's that point where even let me bring INEC here now. Because of course I think right now, sorry to say, INEC is our greatest problem in Nigeria. Look at the past election that just happened in all these states. Okay, now for heaven's sake, you have a situation where we were told that they could not transmit results in real time. There were certain challenges. My brother, my sister, what stops you from holding down things first to have it properly settled, and then you rush at because of what? Because you feel you can do anything you like and whatever. The truth is, look, I'm a realist, and I'm somebody that I believe in fairness. Do you know? If I lose like I lost to my the second aspirant in my party that emerged a party candidate, I congratulated him because it was obvious we had open ballot and everybody saw that they voted him, so there was nothing like any. It was congratulations, and the next thing I went, he invited me to his office and like, okay, Ruby, how do we go? It's a party. Meanwhile, we had already discussed within us that, okay, we are still going to work together and everything. But before you knew it, of course, I don't want to go in there now. Now, getting back to INEC. Now, there was a great discrepancy, clear to the world. Even outside observers were shouting. What stops you from a leader or a leader stopping things for that moment, observing things, and then before going ahead? There is nothing wrong. Nobody will die if you did not announce that result. And most you ask, are we witches that will be up in the night waiting and then no? In America, the truth is, okay, there are platforms where you have this WhatsApp thing that you have a poll. Just keep the poll, lock the group and go and sleep. Anybody who is voting, you are seeing them. And the reason why these people won't let things work because they know that they can never win elections on fair ground. And so they have employed INEC, employed whatever means they want to employ, using the machine. How can you tell me you are bringing thugs against me so that you can rule me? It means you don't have anything relevant to offer. Because if you are a leader, who is a leader? A leader is one that has followers. You're not just a leader because you are president or anything. A leader has true followers. Otherwise, what you have are just deceptors in disguise. Yeah, most of these political people you're seeing, fathers, they don't have followers. Oh. That's why there's no party. They are just crossing from here, crossing from here, crossing from here. Anything goes. And do all political parties have the same
we're not following ideologies.
manifesto or whatever?
Yeah.
So the thing is that it's for my belly. There was something I heard lately. I'm sorry to digress, but I feel I should drop this. I had a meeting at I don't want to mention the hotel. It was a top dignitary, so we had people from, the diaspora, and they were in that meeting. One person mentioned to me, is a very close mentioned to me how that he brought a particular investor into Nigeria. I wanted to sit on the floor and start crying. He brought a particular investor into Nigeria, and The investor was told to show proof of funds. The guy showed $3 billion. There was a particular project they were supposed
Funds
to
for
run
what?
a rail from from the north to the southeast, and then from Lagos through another route again. That it would have revolutionized transport in Nigeria. Guess what your minister told that person? He said he should go and give him 500 million first before they
Each
discuss.
of them.
Abeg, no, let me mention him. Do you understand? He knows himself. If he hears this broadcast, he knows himself. And in my mind, I say, God punish you anywhere where you
Is it
go.
the
Right.
minister of the previous
I'm sorry.
government or the
Or
current
this
government?
current government.
No, not this current government, of the previous,
previous
previous
government.
government.
So in other words, you are saying the
They are
the
there for
election
their
wasn't
bellies.
free and fair.
No, it wasn't.
But the
Very
judiciary, after the election, appealed and all that, still proved that okay, this is what happened.
Oh, in fact, I've never seen such a ridiculous thing in my entire life. Every time, certain pushes were made, the way the judiciary knocks off those things in the most ridiculous way, you just laugh and feel sorry for your country. You feel sorry. But the honest truth is that a time will come, because you see, Nigeria will not be enslaved. We were in the hands of slave masters. I think it's better then than now, because having dollars as internal slave masters is worse, because they don't even know what to do. All they are concerned is their belly. It's just the illustration I gave you. Why would you think about that? Are we not aware of a particular senator who, after certain things were coming out, the same senator who would have built a particular hospital or clinic that would have solved the matter in his state, refused to build it, and at the end of the day, he got into trouble? So are we supposed to now be saying everything? The truth is, our leaders, if they don't change, these youths here, we will not sit down and watch our country burn. I don't have another country to go. The truth is, there's no way I've traveled to that I spend more than 2 weeks. Body will be burning me to come home. Then we don't have any other home. And then here I sit, I have little children now. And then what will I tell my children? So they should just be careful that every day is for the thief. But one day.
Let's begin to bring this down. Is the solution in the hands of the women? Or can we find solution in the hands?
I think women can play a major role in revolutionizing Nigeria.
So how
If we
do we
find
get
good
women to begin to come into, because like we saw that 98 statistics showed that 98% of women during the campaign dropped for a lot of reasons, economic reasons, cultural reasons, and mostly fear, exactly, and pressure, fear and external pressure. So how do we begin to break into that now? Because if the solution lies in women, it means we have to be finding solutions. So how do we get women to begin to continue to stay on the course, especially towards financial empowerment also for women? Because we know it's one of the issues.
It's going to take a lot. Oh, yeah, it's going to take a lot. Sometimes, although they say a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a step. So somehow we just have to start. So I think it can begin with women coming to okay? When they form an ally, certain crew, we can't all be the same. Women, we fight a lot.
Yeah.
So of course, you locate women of your kind of mind, set. You may not have to come from one community or anything. You can be indifferent. The world has become a global village. So even people abroad, you can engage them.
Yes.
And then somebody is pumping confidence into you. Oh, we will support you. You understand? I think was it 2 years ago, the theme of women, is it Women Day, was break. Is it
Breaking the barriers or
yes,
something,
breaking the
yes,
barriers or something like that. I think that really helped, because so many organizations did orientational programs that helped to knock off certain things. The truth is that in time past, it's a fellow woman that will even fight you. But you see, I was very lucky to have a particular woman in my party, and she, of course, as at that time, she was the national women leader. So when the first day I had to meet with the panel of my party, they were asking me, so are you sure you want to, the one person just stood up who came in from the north, and no, we can never take woman, and she's from Kaduna, and she stood up like a lion. She said, what did you just say? We take this woman. We are taking a woman. She stood on my ground until she bought everybody. So that was a win position for me that day. In fact, the kind of hug I gave her, I'm sure she have not had that in a very long time from any fellow woman. But I just made her know that, look, sister, you've just broken something. And I just wish that there will be more women like you that will rise in different places all around, the parties in Nigeria. Now, on this aspect, first is economic. Most women don't have the kind of power some of these men wield and the kind of money some of them have. And women, we are very thoughtful people. I would think about it that, okay, if I throw 1 billion naira somewhere, where does it land? Where will it get me to? We're always afraid of waste. We are managers. Women don't waste. So there's that natural nature in a woman not to waste. She wants to see that there's prospect. She wants to see that there's assurance. And then she can go. It's like what I was saying then. I said, forget anything. Some of you asking me money, relax. I said, but I will not bribe, because for my own conscience sake, I will not bribe anybody. But when I get there, you will now know that the game will change. Why? I didn't depend on my own finances or resources. I knew I had backups in different places and all of that. Do you understand? Now, because the truth is, when you are able to sell your vision, I think it's like what the presidential candidate of LP did. They will say, we'll not give you shishi. And truly, they did not give. There was a friend of mine who was trying to woo me. He's a big politician in Lagos. And he was like, Honorable Ruby, please, join LP, join LP. I say, I know they join LP, but I'm going to vote the right presidential candidate who gives me what I think I believe can change Nigeria. So it was that they even sent money into my account by himself. Obi did not send him. So there were people who on their own. Why didn't that man succeed with the youth so much? Because
did he send that to get votes? No, just to learn his support.
No, just to like encourage me that come now, that sort of thing. Okay. So it's not like no votes. Okay. No, of course not.
Same thing.
Pardon?
Wouldn't that
no, it's not. No, it's not. It's like, let me take you out. Let's do some drinks. No. It's not. It's very foul. Nobody will be able to buy my mind. You can't. How much you have? You can't. Why? Because I'm a real person that can reason, and I will not vote, someone who will kill my children. Why will I vote a terrorist into power? I will not. Do you understand? So even if you give me the billions, when you run away with your children, you don't have a home now. You're a vagabond wherever you are. So that's one of the things all these people should think about. So for women, they need to have support financially. They need to have support economically. Now, of course, I know that when I'm seeing your face, the way you're looking, when I say support, nobody really wants to rain down money on you and say, go and run race. You have to show yourself a woman of capacity first. Women should start businesses, great businesses, become wealthy. So that next time around, I saw the whole something. I was like, okay, all right, so let's shift back and let's get there. By the time we get there next time, you are throwing your own, I'm throwing my own. Not like to bribery or whatever, but what I need to do, I will do.
Okay, let's bring this down to grassroots governance. Like when I talk to youth, I also want to talk to my fellow youth, and I see somebody of my age picking up presidential candidacy forms, and I feel like, do you have that much? That's brave, but I wonder if you have yielded that much impact, even in the grassroots. So for women too, do you think that in aspiring for this, it's a long journey? We should begin somewhere, because we saw a lot of people. Where are you coming from? And you're presidential candidate. Where are you coming from? You're running from. Should we begin to see women take up forms and start running for councillorship, local government chairman? We don't see that anyway. We only see women, because I would say we are new also to the political game. The men are just beginning to fall into pressure, if you ask me, and they're allowing women, okay, you can come in first, you can take 10%, you can take in 25%, give you this quota. Should we begin to see women start from the ground up?
I think the grassroots is it.
Okay.
Yeah, the grassroots is it. However, there are certain positions you may have attained in life personally, certain levels you have reached. I can't see myself becoming a.
Okay.
I mean, it's not possible. I'm far past that. Even if you give me a chairman, I will consider it an insult. Okay. Do you understand? Now, I'm not saying, but everybody has their level. You understand? They have their level and they have their. I believe every politician has a vision for coming to join. If you want to be a local government councillor, there's probably something in that village or somewhere you've seen that you want to solve, but you need power to solve it. It's just like this road
Even at that level.
yeah, it's just like there's a particular road on Gudu Road that an individual, I don't want to mention name, did. They fought him for doing the road.
Why?
They said he should not have done it without government. He used his money to solve a problem for the people. Instead of getting a thank you, they took him to court. So that's why people usually will look for power to be able to achieve certain things they have in mind for their people, for their community. So of course, the grassroots is it. So it's for women to begin to position it, because if, for instance, now a woman is the chairman of a local government, there is every possibility for her to work for a woman who is coming in as a governor.
Exactly.
So you see, so women should plant themselves in different areas, and then it's now going to be, the thing is, it's a journey. It's a journey. I just it's part of my lessons the last time. You don't just just plunge in somewhere. There is a journey you build up. So I believe women should start building up now. I mentioned Ireti Kingibe. She has been building up. So that position, in fact, if you really look at it, is small for her. Do you understand? She can handle without blinking her eyes. She has gone through the experience, seen so many things, and there she is. So I think that grassroots stuff is something that must begin, and they start now. You don't wait until it's 3 months to election. You wanna start now. In that I think more women should be coming in. If you have among state delegates that are to vote, maybe in a primary election, maybe out of 100, you have 45 women. You're seeing, and then they are allies. You know that there's a way. Some of them will sit on the floor and get some men to join them. So if or she, they will take it. So the more women engage, don't let anybody intimidate you. You can be the party chairman. Who says you can't be the party chairman as a woman? Go for that. Go for be your party secretary, be your party treasurer, so that by the time it's time for them to come in and they want to vote, I tell you, if we can get it right at the point of delegates, we will have the right candidates.
Okay. All right. I believe you just spoke to the women. I don't know if you have, because we are running out of time, a word or two for those making policies that are not considering including women. The policy is already there. There are those that are still having issues including women. So I don't know if you have a word or 2 minutes.
I think I just want to plead with them to please obey the rule that has been given, the judgment that has been concerning that. Let women be included in all politics in Nigeria. I'm telling you, it will make a whole lot of change. I think over the years, if you check certain women that have been appointed to certain positions, we can tell at least 90% of the 100, they made such impact. You understand?
Yeah.
Now, my plea to this set of people, set of men in particular, is the fact that your posterity, what will posterity remember you for? Some of these men, they just believe that they'll be in power forever. You will not be in power forever. If you are the Chief Justice of Nigeria now, you will not be there forever. Give yourself another 4 years, you are former. Give yourself another 5 years, if it's too long, 10, you are former. But what will you leave for your children? So these men are not considering posterity. They are just looking at now. That's why it's about the belly now. Those certain persons started approaching me after the whole thing, like, Honorable Ruby, please. There are many I had to send money to at different things. They were hungry with their family. Yes, they were very hungry. I said, you see, it's out of God's mind, though. If not 1 naira, you will not see. It's true. You were hungry. But you chose, wrongly. You chose wrong because you wanted to eat now. You think, how many billion will somebody give? It will finish.
Talking about former, lastly, are we seeing you on the ballot again?
Okay, they always ask me that question. Let me just leave it open.
You are leaving it open.
I'm leaving it open.
You're leaving it open.
Because one of my thriving points, one of my push into joining the race was because I just felt that Aren't there people with sense to at least guide Nigeria to move forward, unite Nigeria, solve this insecurity problem? That, in fact, that insecurity problem was one of my bane of contention. I like God. I would take care of insecurity in 3 months. These people you are talking about, is it not bush inside Nigeria, or are they spirits? They're not spirits. One technology will solve that matter of kidnapping, and where are they hiding? Where are they hiding? And we have the resources to do that, but they will not do that. Because one of my diplomatic administrator, his son was kidnapped 2 weeks ago. The man had to go into the bush
Himself.
Yes. He had,
successful?
of course, after they told him 50 million or your son is dead.
And he got his son.
He was, of course, he got his son. You know? And then guess what? The people were in soldier uniform. Who gave them uniform? The people carried gun. In fact, one of them mentioned that, now people now give us. What are we talking about?
The solution is in all of us hands, whether female or male. We're just hoping that Nigeria can come together, form, and make things to work. But with such passion, we're hoping that in 2027 we'll find a in the balloting, whichever level, and we'll be right behind it, because we need women. If the solution lies in the hands of women, we need women. All right, thank you so much, Honorable Ruby, for coming on New Dawn this morning. Yeah, there's more still to come right after the break. Do stay with us.
Hey, let's get to advertise your products and services on our platform. Viewer Television is here to give your business a boost with a touch of professionalism. If you're a brand owner, entrepreneur, proud business owner, let's place your business in the face of your customers. Contact us so we can talk business on 081-2121-2278 or info@viewertv.com.ng. Always remember, we are here for you.
Many thanks for staying with us. This is still New Dawn Nigeria on Viewer Television. And now our human activities greatly and adversely and affecting the environment, affecting our environment, because we are in the environment. How concerned should you be about your environment? How should you take care of your environment? Joining me now live in the studio on this environmental conversation is Mr. Charles. Help me with the name.
Doke.
Mr. Charles.
You can call it like Coke. Just
Okay,
take the C
Mr.
off
Charles.
and
Mr.
use
Charles
D.
Doke is
Good.
an environmental journalist and is here to tell us how we can reduce our carbon footprint and help our environment. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you for having
It's
me.
so good to have you. Now let's go straight into the conversation.
Yes.
How we're not. I think I'm one of those people who is not so concerned about the environment, because I feel like it takes care of itself. Mother Nature, you take care of yourself. You're already a nurturer. We don't need to nurture you to nurture us. So how concerned should we be about our environment, and why should we be?
Well, we should be very, very concerned. In the beginning, I'm starting like it's the Bible.
Oh yeah.
So in the beginning, when God created the world, the whole thing was that, okay, he situated Adam and Eve in a garden. That is where the issue of environment has already started. So if people think that the environment is something that takes care of itself, yeah, it does to a certain extent. But then humanity and its activities also, after a while, now begins to affect the environment, as it were.
Yeah.
So that is why, from what it was then to now, you discover that a lot of things have changed. We have a lot of, from the heat wave, you know that your environment is not the way it is. Your parents would just tell you that, it didn't used to be like this. We've seen pictures of places where there was a dam before. I mean, one place that can make you cry is the Lake Chad. If you look at where the Lake Chad, the way it was 50 years ago, and you look at it now, you discover that there's nothing. The Lake Chad used to be, part of it used to be in Nigeria, in Chad, and then in Cameroon. All these places have receded, and I think it's just back in Chad, just one small place like that. I know the violence being experienced around that place is all because of environment. The farmer herder clashes that we're having is because of people trying to fight or get resources that are
Yeah.
becoming scarce.
Yeah.
Why are they scarce? Because of environment. Why are they scarce? Because population is growing. So if population is growing, you have to strike a balance with the environment. Environment, you're talking about the earth, you're talking about water, you're talking about trees, plants, so basically I look at this, you're talking about air, so these are the things that actually gives us sustenance on earth. So you have to be concerned
have to take
about.
care of it.
Yes.
So I know that statistics has shown that I think Nigeria or Africa, our contribution to the carbon emissions is barely 1%.
Yeah.
And a lot of us were not like, okay, so why should we be concerned about that? Is it that little percent, is it really affecting that we should be that concerned?
Well, it should, because ordinarily you would say, it's not my business. I still have a lot of allowances for me to be able to maybe affect the environment, because industrialization in the West and all that that is what is responsible for all this. But if you look at it again, you discover that Africa suffers more of the brunt. These guys have used all the industrialization, everything they need to do to develop their places in such a way that they don't suffer this. If you're going to talk about food, we are the ones here that are still very much close to the environment.
Yeah.
There's flooding. If there's flooding issues here, where do we run to? People are still living in mud houses. Water soaks, and before evening, it's down. They are living in concrete houses. But no matter how the water comes, they're able to maybe go up or go into the to sub and all that. So they've been able to control the environment with the technology. So whatever happens, water, they say, finds its way anyhow. So if the North Pole and the South Pole, they begin to melt, and then you have large volumes of water, going everywhere, trying to settle, we are in trouble. Yeah, Lagos is gradually getting submerged. It's in Africa. What's happening is because of the volume of water that is there. So there's a lot of things. So we have to worry about it. Two, again, is that there's another aspect that a lot of people don't actually know. You have to worry because you might make money. Let me say something here.
Okay.
There's what you call carbon, which you mentioned. Carbon might be seen right now as the new gold in the future. Because if you hear, there's always COP21, COP22. There's a lot of money now coming. Everybody is aware that the environment is something that if we don't treat it well, all of us are going to perish. So you have these calls around the world about the environment and all that, and they're talking about carbon. We are emitting more carbon than we can recycle. So we are cutting down trees, and these are basically what is able to sequestrate this carbon into the ground. So if, for instance, you have Coca-Cola that has a lot of industries everywhere, and they are putting out carbon monoxide or dioxide into the atmosphere, depleting the ozone layer, and causing global warming and all that. There's what you call carbon. They have a percentage now. Everybody has a percentage for atonement. If you have an allowance of, let's say, 50 grams, let's say, of carbon, and then your company produces 500, that means you have to atone for that 450. So in atoning for that 450, that means you have to find someone somewhere that is not meeting up his allowances and is even planting trees or doing things that can sequestrate carbon into the ground. So where do you find those things? The huge forests that we have in Africa, they are very fertile places for carbon sequestration. The farms that we have, provided you don't use chemicals or fertilizers, you can sequestrate carbon. So that means you have to get instruments that can measure the amount of carbon being sequestrated and turned into credits, so that people that are overshooting theirs can now buy carbon credits from people that have surplus in order to make up.
Okay, that's very, very technical. As much as it sounds so important, it's sounding very technical.
Yeah.
But okay, let's try to bring this down to nitty-gritty. What are the activities that some of us engage in that is not environmentally friendly? I'm talking about now in our houses, households, as individuals. What are these things that, because I feel like, how to say, little drops make an ocean, this little carbon footprints from making up that 1%. To what extent, so that we can begin to be sensitive and be proactive to reducing those activities?
I think one of the most important things is plants, incorporation of plants around where we live. Trees are very, very important. Yes, planting of trees, because those are the chief means of sequestrating this carbon. They are the ones that emit the oxygen that we breathe. So if we don't plant these trees, how do we get this oxygen? We don't get it. We get it in short supply. And then, so planting of trees. People build houses, they take down, clear a whole lot of forest, and then they laminate the ground with either concrete or with interlocking tiles. Say, it's looking beautiful and all
Yeah.
that. No, you have to incorporate. Recently, I saw a picture of some parts of China where they're trying to make like sponge gardens. They are actually trees that they feel can soak up water. So if there's flooding, they're able to soak up, yes, a lot of water. So it's really, really important. So one of the things we need to start doing is planting trees.
So even as individuals, we should begin to plant trees.
Yes.
None of us feel like when we plant a tree, I'd wait so long before I benefit from this tree.
I don't think so. I have seen a tree yesterday. I was on a farm. I tell you that almost every time I go into nature. Yesterday I was on a farm, which is they planted some trees. They're into regenerative agriculture and agroforestry and all that. They planted trees in March last year, February,
Okay.
March last year. The tree is like 12 feet. I measured it.
wow.
Literally, I measured that eucalyptus tree.
Did you say March last year?
March this year.
March this year.
March this year. So it's not up to a year. It is 12 feet tall. There are fast-growing varieties of trees. You look at the black currants that we have around the streets in Abuja. You have the ficus, the shining ficus around. You have, there are lots of them that are very, very fast-growing trees. So when you say you cannot plant a tree that you're not even going to enjoy, so why would you try to work and put together money for your children to go to school? It's the same thing. And this is even much more than just children. You're looking at the environment. You're looking at the future of humanity. So you have to incorporate plants in whatever kind of spaces that you have. The more you have that, the more it covers the earth, Mother Earth. The more it covers, because I think one of the problems we have is that the earth is left bare. And if it is bare, it becomes loose. If it becomes loose, the winds come and they take them away. If they take them away, it's either the water washes it to the streams or to the rivers, and then you have a lot of silt, and then the valley is very shallow, and water comes, it just overflows the banks, and we have all these problems like flooding and all that. Two is again protection of native trees. If we talk about trees like this, which are palms, and look at the ficus and all those trees that you see around, they are trees that have been brought in. They have naturalized, as it were. But there are trees that are native to this place, and people have been cutting them down for charcoal, for firewood, for to make roof for their
So
houses.
when you say native, do you mean they are specific to this particular
Yes,
climes?
specific to this climate,
Okay.
to Africa, to Nigeria,
Okay.
to Abuja.
Oh.
Yes, so those are native trees. Talk about balanites. Talk about baobab. These are native trees that are native to this place. But if you bring the neem tree, it's everywhere. But the neem tree is native to India.
Oh, okay.
It found its way around here in the 1970s, but it has adapted very well.
And it was okay, yeah.
Yes,
Let's
but
ask
these
this.
trees actually serve as conditioners, and most times you find they are the trees that people cut down in the forests, and they become extinct. And just like if they become extinct, the other trees cannot do the function of the native trees that are there. So we have to protect them. We have to plant. We have to incorporate trees
Yeah, that's
and plants.
very, very vital information. Honestly, I think we really need to be sensitive to know that we also have things like native trees.
Yes.
That are important for our particular climate. So you are an environmental journalist. So are you involved right now in any activities or any projects helping the environment, either personally or with any organizations?
Yes, I am. I am very much, really, really involved. Chiefly two organizations.
Okay.
Yes. On a personal level, I work as a communication specialist for a World Bank funded project called Agroclimatic Resilience in Semi-Arid Landscapes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's it's a $700 million World Bank funded project for all the 19 states in northern Nigeria and the FCT, because they are like the frontline states when you talk about aridity and desert encroachment and all that. Yes, so the federal government decided to make sure they get these funds and give these particular frontline states and see how they will be able to build resilience in communities, be able to now roll back the effects, or ameliorate the effects of climate change on the people. So that's one of the projects I'm working on. We just finished planting like 1,500 hectares of forests in
What
Adamawa.
location? Oh,
In
okay.
Adamawa, yes. And we still continue planting. We've also planted in government institutions. You go to a school and then you see no tree,
Yeah.
just buildings, and there are no trees. And of course, in a school, government always makes sure they provide fencing, they make sure they provide water. So if there's water, there's fence, and there are no plants.
Right,
I know
yeah.
the students are there, so you need to catch them young. So get them tree seedlings, let them adopt. While I was in secondary school, I had a tree named after me. So
Oh,
even
wow.
today, if I go to that school, I know that tree. So I always go there and call the tree Charles.
So you've always been an environmentalist.
Well, maybe in spirit, because I grew up with parents that have been agriculturists, but
Okay.
I didn't know it the way I know it now.
Wow.
Now I have to be really very deliberate. So that's one organization that's really doing. In fact, there's a very ambitious project we're about to embark on, which is the greening of Greater Yola.
Okay.
Yola, we want to turn Yola to be a green city.
Okay.
Create bodies of water, be able to plant avenues, be able to plant shrubs, make sure you planted parks, make them look green, so that we want to see whether we can drop the temperature of Yola, even if by 1%, then we know 1 degree. We now know that we've achieved something.
What effort would that take in terms of time and all?
Yeah, it will take a lot of time, because we have been able to bring in consultants, from within and from outside, and they've been able to do a lot of studies. At this time, we are at the planning stage. There has to be a lot of sensitization. There has to be a lot. People have to be in tune with what you're trying to say, because it's a strange thing for someone to think, the small place I'm farming because they are coming to plant trees there, or maybe shrubs, or the person will fight you. But with the right kind of sensitization, people will be like, okay, I think it's important. We never used to see rainfall in November and it's falling. What's wrong? We never used to see sandstorms. It's happening. What's wrong? So if you explain this, I tell you, people are amenable to solutions, especially the ones that really affect them. So the second organization I work with, it's not directly me, but I set up a small, let's say, communication outfit that had been working, giving some media services to that organization. So right now, they've been able to get funding for what you call regenerative agriculture or agroforestry or carbon farming. They, on the farm, they have about 40 hectares of forest that they have grown from scratch, from sandy soil, from degraded soil.
Oh, wow.
So within 4 years, that soil has become very, very rich. If you go there and you see the forest that is there, if you go there and see how it has changed the microclimate in that environment, so they were able to now access funding. So we are implementing those things in Kaduna, in Nasarawa, and in Adamawa states. This agroforestry is supposed to empower up to 36,000, between 36,000 to 72,000 smallholder farmers to learn how to be able to farm without using inputs, fertilizers, chemicals, pesticides, and all that. And so far, it started this year. This time, we are into harvest. People, they have harvested from groundnuts to ginger to rice to
Already?
everything. Yeah, they've harvested. And you know what? The good thing is that they're all organic, 100%. And when you say organic, if you go abroad, you know that it's only the rich that can afford organic. So that's it. So we're building resilience. It's a whole lot of things happening. So you can see both ways. Caught up
Interior
with the environment.
So
Yes.
it's very laudable to know that apart from just talking about these things, you're actively doing something
Sure.
about the environment.
Sure.
And kudos to you and your organizations. And we hope that a lot of us become, all of us, it's all our jobs to
It is.
become involved in taking care of the environment in whatever measure that we can. It's the only home we have.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. It is.
We
have
can
to
clamor
take care
for
of it.
space all we can, but this is the only
This is
home
where we can't go anywhere.
we have. Yeah. So
Until we
can't go
discover
anywhere.
if there's a home in
Yes.
Uranus or in Pluto.
Yes. Then we can talk about it. But for now, this is home, and let's take care of it. Thank you so much, Charles
Thank you.
Joke, for coming on New Dawn this morning and talking to us about the environment. We hope that this has been impactful to you. Yeah, and thank you for sticking with me till the end of New Dawn Nigeria this Saturday morning. Until I come your way again, my name remains Chino. So check us and do have a lovely weekend.